7:35 on a Wednesday hump day on KCMO 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We are anxiously awaiting our good friend Harris Faulkner from Fox News, who is scheduled to join us here on KCMO. In the meantime, as we wait for her, we have some breaking news. The July inflation rate just dropped 5 minutes ago, and it fell to 2.9% below the expectations of 3.0%. This is the first time that the inflation number has been below 3 since March of 2021. What does this mean? Rate cuts are coming. The Fed will, and we expected this, but this is really the icing on the cake. The Fed will cut interest rates in September when they are scheduled to meet next. Now the question becomes whether or not the Fed can avoid a recession or not. Their job is still far from over, right? And this is, unfortunately, one of the downsides of having so much power with this central bank, where you've got basically this Fed, and it's a global deal, but in the case of the United States, you've got a Fed now that toys and tinkers with interest rates to try to increase supply or decrease demand or decrease demand. And they're more or less playing a shell game here is what they're doing. They try to pull off these soft landings. They try to contract the economy in response to a bloated federal bureaucracy spending too much and creating inflation to begin with. So they're part of the problem, but frankly, they're our only option right now. They're our best bet. Now, if you're going to look at this and start doing cartwheels and saying to yourself, well, I mean, my goodness, wow, this is amazing. Look at, inflation's coming down. Joe's doing it, baby. No. You are very much misrepresenting what's going on here. You had, nearly 40, well, I guess you'd have to say, March of 2021. Yeah. Almost 40 months of inflation at least over 3% every single month for going on 3.5 years. The Fed's target is for 2% inflation. And you go back to 2021, and we had months of 8-9% inflation. So the inflation compounds on itself, right? Being up 2.9% from last year, and I've got to pull up the numbers here on the fly. Here we go. All right, so we're up 2.9%. That's the number that it came in at. Last year in July, it was at 3.2%. Go back to July of 22, it was at 8.5%. July of 22. And July of 21, it was at 5.4%. So just work through this here with me. We'll do it together. 5.4 on top of 8.5, on top of 3.2, on top of 2.9. That's 20 on the dot, 20.0 on the number. So everything in your life, on average, is up 20%. And that's just the government's number, by the way, which do with that number what you want, but that's the number the government's giving you. 20% inflation compounded going back to 2021. So everything is 20% on average more expensive than it was back in July of 2020. Because I took the inflation number in July of 21 plus July of 22 plus July of 23 plus July of 24. It's not like it resets back to an original number. The inflation number compounds on top of itself. So you've got inflation exactly at 20% from 4 years ago. And that's, by the way, if the Trump team is smart, that's what they'll do with this number today. They won't let Kamala or Joe get away with this notion of inflation's down. Yeah, it's down from last year, but it's not like we reset back to some original made-up number by some genie. The number is 2.9% on top of last year, which was 3.2, which was on top of the 8.3 number, which was on top of the 5.4 number. So they snowball on top. So we now have exactly 20% inflation stacked up over the last 4 Julys. Anyone who's bragging about that either doesn't understand math, doesn't know how inflation actually works, or is just gaslighting and lying to you. It's one of those 3 options. And now, am I glad that the number is not 3.9? It's only 2.9? Sure. If you want to look at it from that perspective, yes, I'm glad it's under 3. But it doesn't change the amount of pain that has been suffered by many Americans over the last 3.5 years. That does not change. It's not like we're talking about negative inflation. It's not like inflation being down means prices are going back to where they were. None of that is how any of this works, John.
Well, sure, Pete. On the first of the month, it resets, and so gas is just $2.50. But then by the end of the month, it's $3.75. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Gosh, you're so smart, John. You just nailed it, man. You really did. Mark, since we are working around not having Harris Faulkner, I got a clip in here I'd like you to play. You'll see it there right below Harris's name. And I want to play this from MSNBC. And this is a clip on MSNBC. Excuse me, is it? It's NBC News, so not MSNBC. Same company, but it's NBC News. Of a Philadelphia woman getting emotional over the issue of inflation and how difficult it has been for so many Americans over the last 4 years. Let's roll.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
Who do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't, but I have to go work.
That right there aired on NBC News. Inflation does not reset. It does not start over, as John joked about at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the year. It compounds and it compounds and it compounds. That's the math. Don't let anybody try to convince you otherwise. I don't want to see any, bragging today. Inflation's down. It has been a painful 3.5, 4 years for many. But that's why you see politically, whether it's Kamala Harris or prior to that, Joe Biden, they're not really interested in talking about the economy. They're trying to ride waves like abortion and democracy, whatever that even means, to a victory here. And amazingly, they might actually pull it off. And then I'll just kind of sit back and say, you know what? America deserves what it gets. I won't want to hear any more about inflation, crying about interest rates, world turmoil, crime. People will have doubled down on all of it for, air quotes, vibes. That's what they will have done. 913-408-7957. Independence. Ron, before the break, you got the floor there. Ron, what's up, buddy?
Well, good morning. Good morning. Like I told the guy, I just got in the car.
Whoa. Pump the brakes. That guy has a name on this show, Ron. All right? If we're going to respect your name and call you Ron, please do not refer to John as that guy.
Oh, okay. Well, I talked to John, and I said I just got in the car and turned on the radio, and I noticed you guys was talking about inflation and that, and I just wanted to say this. I am a Walmart shopper. When Biden took office, my 6-pack of Pepsi, the plastic bottles that I don't think they're 16 ounce, but they're close to that. 6 of them, a 6-pack was $1.75. Right now they're $4.95. The bag of Russell Stover candy that I like was $4.95.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're $8.95, and the gas station up the street that my wife liked these. She likes these taffy things. They're like a foot long.
Yep.
They were 3 for $1. Well, no more. Now they're 60 cents each.
Woo!
So
yeah, you're going to go from the
just a
6-pack of Pepsi. You're going to have to go to the 6-pack of Kettle One with the way things are going there. Jeez, just to forget all this.
Yeah, and that's what upsets me. When they say, when they talk about this 3%, 4%. We're talking about 100%.
Yeah. No, you're right. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
And thank you for showing John the proper respect on this show as well. Come on now.
Show some RESPICT.
I just got your back, John. That's my job here, being your bodyguard. But he's right, by the way. He's absolutely right, which is why I started off the conversation by saying these are the numbers the government gives you. 913-408-7957. Seeing if we can connect with our good friend Harris Faulkner as we roll through the 7 o'clock hour on KCMO. Nice job on X. I just got this sent to me. Pete, celebrating this inflation number of 2.9% is like celebrating a student's D's and C's in the last semester of high school following straight F's for all the previous years. That's nailed it. That is the perfect analogy to make here. Also on the text line, and I think this person's serious at 913-408-7957. Pete, resolved. Hashtag landslide Joe is the greatest inflation-fighting president in history. Oh, come on. What are we doing? I mean, you don't get credit for... Didn't even really fix it because, remember, the Fed's target is 2%. So you're 50% off from your target. If you're somebody who works for a business and you are 50% off of your goal, your boss is not going to be happy, right? If you come within 50% of your budget for the year, you're probably out of a job. And that's technically how you should also look at this. But you definitely don't get credit for really doing nothing to fix the problem outside of allowing time. But you would not get any credit for maybe helping fix an issue that you created that was the worst inflation in 40-some-odd years. Yeah, and that's not how this works. Maybe in the government that's how it works, but it's not how it works. It's another reason that when you tie it back to what's going on here in Kansas City, Jackson County, you stack the tax assessments that took place last year, the debacle that was the tax assessments from last year and the way that's playing out right now, on top of the federal inflation issues. And when history properly tells the story, and I don't know who's going to do it or when it's going to happen. I mean, we'll do it here on the show in real time, but I'm not writing some book on it. Maybe our buddy Patrick Toohey at the Show Me Institute can do that. Someone's got to write a book. Someone can do a documentary on this for Kansas City. When you look back on what happened in April in this town with the Chiefs-Royals sales tax extension, a lot of it was a blowback to the tax assessment issues of last year in Jackson County. And a lot of it, too, was a protest vote based on just the cost of everything going up during a very tough economic time. Go back to 2006 when the stadium votes passed to upgrade Arrowhead, upgrade the K. Of course, they didn't get the rolling roof on both stadiums, but they got hundreds of millions of dollars in upgrades. 2006 was an outstanding economic time in this country. Pre-2008 crash. Home prices, similar to now, but different because that was a bubble back in 2006. I don't think there's a housing market bubble right now. There's just too much pent-up demand for housing that I don't think we'll see a housing crash like 2008. But 2006 was an incredible economic time. It was post-dot-com bubble era. It was post 9/11. Things were very good economically leading up to the 2008 crash. So people felt good and they felt okay. And there was a different mindset about investing your sales tax dollars in the sports teams. 20 years later, more economic populism. You've got 3.5 years of inflation, the worst 3.5 years of inflation in 40 some odd years. And then you had this tax assessment disaster in Jackson County, and that's how you get a 20-point loss. And when people tell me who are connected to the teams, the Chiefs and the Royals, last week they told me this. They said, hey, these teams are still licking their wounds. They were absolutely stunned by what happened on April 2nd. I just want to bang my head against the wall. I know everybody in this town can't listen to this show, although, I make the case that they should. I know they can't, although I know a lot of them do. And it's like, guys, if you were tuned in at all, at any point, January through April 2 in Kansas City to what we were doing on KCMO, you would know that things were not looking good. We had people across the political spectrum who were like, I'm voting no. And they each had a different reason to vote no. Some of it was yes about the Royals and the Crossroads. Some of it was yes about Jackson County assessments. Some of it was just inflation in general. And some of it was we're not giving billionaires money for stadiums anymore. Those days are over. But everybody had a reason. And the only reason really to vote yes was, well, Patrick Mahomes told me to on a flyer. And I don't want him to go to Austin, Texas, which was always kind of an empty threat. The vote yes reasons did not supersede, in any estimation, the vote no's and the vote no reasons. And that's how we ended up with what we got in this town back in April. So as we see this inflation number today, it just stacks onto the pain that Kansas Cityans are feeling, that Americans are feeling, and anybody trying to tell you that things are going great and everything's hunky-dory and people are living large. It's just not the reality for not just tens of millions of Americans, but hundreds of millions of Americans.